Hello, welcome to another edition of Prove All Things. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X, or watching on the CGI Digital Network app, whether that's on your phone, tablet, or television. And soon to be, we have some new places to watch on the Google TV and Amazon Fire TV. So, uh, welcome to everyone out there. I'm joined with co-host Mike James. How you doing?
Hey, Jeff, doing well. Good to see you. We're getting a lot of rain here in California. It's been raining steady for about 2 days now, and a lot over 300 mudslides. We got flooding near the coast, different parts of the LA area, and wow, we definitely are getting our fill of rain over the last 2 winters.
How are you doing? Do you have any chance of flooding where you live, or are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm in a good spot, kind of in the foothills of the mountains, but the way the water would run, they've got some concrete canals that the water runs through going downhill. So I'm safe here. Two days of rain and it's okay. We got a little water forming in the backyard and on the side here, a little bit on the concrete. It kind of curves a little, but other than that, nothing in the house or anything.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're safe. I guess we have prayers for those out there that are suffering from these all that rain you're getting.
Yeah, there have been some things on the news you've probably seen with these mudslides. Some people, their homes are crushed and a lot of bad things. Yeah,
Hmm. All right. Other than that, how you doing?
doing good, doing good. We are getting ready for the cell meetings the 17th of February. So anybody out there that wants to join me with our monthly cell meetings that we get together for about an hour on the third Sabbath of each month. Just shoot me an email and I can give you some more details on that.
Yeah. So explain to everybody who don't know what a cell group is.
Yeah, cell group is a small group of people, probably 3 to 8 people. They meet in somebody's home. They view the webcast live each Sabbath, or they watch a video each Sabbath. Some of them have Bible studies each Sabbath. Some only meet once or twice a month. Some of these groups have turned into small churches that we got going in New Mexico, Washington State, and other parts of the country, Salt Lake City. Those are some of the cells that have formed into church groups. One of them meets in a library, one of them meets in a home, one of them meets in a church. So, if anybody's interested in trying to get a little cell group going, please send me an email. We can send letters to our mailing list, our email list, and see if we can get some people that want to join in worshiping with you.
Wonderful. That is a great opportunity for anyone out there. If you're out there alone and somewhere, maybe there's someone near you, and hopefully we could find someone. But again, if not, I guess that once a month meeting seems to be a way to bring people together as well.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We're going to bring in our guest now, uh, who is Mike's brother, George. How you doing, George?
All right, good to see you guys again.
Hey, George.
All right.
We had Olivia was going to join us today, but we've had some technical difficulties with her. We're going to try to bring her in as another guest host next week, just for some different questions.
Yeah, it'd be good to have a different perspective than just me and you.
Yeah.
Good questions. Yes, for some reason we couldn't get that going today, but we'll figure it out before next week.
And Jeff, Mike and I enjoy each other so much. We like to have very similar hairdos.
Yes, you go to the same barber. It looks like, even though you're across the country.
I got a little more light on my head, though.
Yeah, I remember back when you had some really curly hair, George, back in
I
the day.
remember that too. I have a picture from those days, and I tell people, as you can see, my hair was in the prime of its career here.
Okay.
So could you
Okay.
give
Speaking of hair, that leads us to the topic of health, right?
It does. It does. Absolutely. So when I shared with you two last time, we were talking about amino acids. We were talking about protein. Amino acids are the building block for proteins
Mhm.
and the important component and function of those. We had some good discussions. We shared some good things, I thought. And Mike had a very interesting question. And there was a lot of good questions. One of Mike's questions resonated a little bit more with me in that you asked Mike about, what about the older adults? Because I think maybe there was some older folks online listening in, and they had some concerns or some questions, and you were trying to, share something from their heart a little bit on the topic. And I responded in this way, as I recall. I mentioned a doctor by the name of David Minkoff, and David Minkoff is in his 70s. He is a competitive athlete for a triathlon events. So he's a triathlete, and it's very strange, very rare to find someone in their mid 70s who competes in triathlons, which is a grueling endurance event for
So
anyone.
he does the full triathlon, right?
Yes, he does the full triathlon, Mike. So
Wow.
I mentioned him as something to be inspiring and inspirational,
Mhm.
but how many people do triathlons? Even a lot of young people don't do triathlons. I've run a marathon. I did a triathlon myself. So there's few and far between for those numbers.
I
But it's
mean,
good to
most
know.
people in their 70s are definitely not in triathlon shape,
Yes,
and
for sure.
probably won't get there either, will they?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. But we're going to try to look at some things today that will be helpful for anyone, especially aging or older adults. We'll try to consider some things. I do want to consider one Bible verse at the beginning here. And I'm just going to make reference, have it on my wall here so I wouldn't forget. 3 John 1 2. 3 John 1 2.
Mhm.
And I'll read that from the King James, have it on right here. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. So this is God's desire for us, and this is for everyone. This is for the 15-year-old, the 25-year-old, 35, 55, 75, and 95. It is for all of us. It is for all of God's children, wherever they may be during the course of their lives. And we know that very, very well, but it's good to be reminded of it as well. Whether we're 90 and we feel lonely for whatever reason, or we're 30 and we're a young buck and we feel like we feel we can conquer the world, or somewhere in between there.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike, that was your question, and my response was, David Minkoff. And let's consider this a little bit. There's nothing wrong with what I said, but when we're younger, there is this great, and I'm talking about teen years and 20 years, in our 20s, also in our 30s too, to a large extent. So I'm talking about those age groups right now. We're in this age group, and there is this massive growth and development. And for goodness sakes, it happens so easily at this time. Sometimes it doesn't take a lot of effort. I can sit down as a 15-year-old or 25-year-old, even still, and I can sit down and have a meal, maybe 10 or 15 grams of protein, and my muscle protein stimulus is ignited like that. Mm-hmm. It is fired up with a little bit of protein, and it's fired up with exercise as well, and I respond well. Mm-hmm. I gain muscle. I get stronger. I'm growing, I'm developing, and this can run into our 30s. So there is a great advantage to youth. Let me ask Jeff
Yeah.
and Mike, let me ask you two this question.
Okay.
Why do you think that is? What do you know about the body, or what any ideas or thoughts on that?
About why, like when you're younger,
Yes,
I guess you have a better metabolism.
that's part of it. That is a result of it. But I'm thinking of something just a little bit deeper. But that is a result of it. Yes.
Because
And
we have
you're
a
right.
12-year-old here in the house, and he can eat like a big giant bowl of ice
Yes.
cream. He can
Yes.
eat like 3 of those a day. He can just whatever. He stays super skinny.
Yes.
But he's
He's got
growing.
great metabolic pathways. And do you know what else he has, Jeff? Working to his advantage.
Yeah.
And also this is very true as he's going to get older too. He has great hormonal levels.
Mm-hmm.
Think about growth hormone,
Right.
testosterone. Now, men have testosterone, so do women, but to a much lesser extent. Maybe about a third on average, maybe about a third of the level of a man does. But that makes us unique in male and female. So that's an important characteristic. That's an important difference maker. So we have these hormones too. And this gives us the testosterone, the growth hormone, insulin, IGF-1. These give us tremendous advantage. So age does matter, Mike. Age does matter. So it's an important question to ask because there is a difference. We don't stay young forever, right? We don't stay young forever, but God still loves us. We just read there 3 John 1:2. He cares. He cares for us when we're 90, if we make it that long, and if God bless us if we do. He cares for us if we're 50 or 30 or younger or even older than those ages.
Well, I saw an article recently, and it's basically just like in our programming, in our DNA, we're programmed to age at a certain rate. You know, the programming tells the cells to develop and then not to develop and move towards aging. That like some animals, they can live a lot longer because of the different programming and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what I would say, Jeff. I'm not sure. Good feedback.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I fully agree with that totally, but I will say this. We age at different rates, and we have determining factors that can influence that.
Like
Something
what?
Like diet, exercise, lifestyle, state of mind. So those factors play a role in that. Stress, yes. Stress plays a role. Stress can hurt us physically. Emotional stress can hurt us physically. So we have to guard against that in some way. Now, Jeff, I want to add this too to your comment there. I've read something in a scientific journal, and it was not a creation scientific journal. So, but it was interesting though, for this reason. They were talking about human potential, and they were saying that we have the capacity, if everything goes right, we have the capacity to live about 120 years. That's what does that remind you of?
Number.
Yeah, what did that? It reminds you of something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it reminds you of someone's biblical age. So, but that's with things going right. We're doing things right. Maybe just the right level of stress, the quality nutrition, the right amount of exercise. Because even exercise, if it's too much, we can cause free radical damage in the body if we don't recover from it. Yeah. So exercise can be taken too far if the recovery isn't there. That's why sometimes shorter duration is better or more appropriate for most people, unless you're an Olympic athlete and that's all you do. But Jeff, I will say that we can age at different rates for different factors, and we have the potential to live longer than we do. It according to even science, not necessarily with a creation viewpoint, would admit that we do have the capacity if we're doing things appropriately in our lives, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So always some interesting things to think about there. So we have these. So let's go back to the hormones there. I'm going to say roughly in our 40s. It could be different for different people, of course. We're not all the same. But probably in our 40s, we all have some decline happening. Okay. And that goes for everybody. At some point, there's physical decline. We can't escape it. I heard, I was listening to someone the other day, and she was saying, we're all getting older, and I had to agree. we are getting older, and there's nothing we can do about it. But when we're in our teen years, it seems like we're getting younger every day. but at some point we feel like we're 35, 40. Wow, I am getting a little bit older now. I noticed a difference.
Yeah, I can remember, George, being about 38 years old.
Yeah, and that's still
and I was going to squat that day, and I usually did a good amount of squatting, and it was a morning. I had to do it in the morning for whatever reason, and I can remember like, oh man, I can't do this today. Like all of a sudden it hit me like, at around 38, I started to really notice that something was happening. It was different.
And that's Mike, that's perfectly natural. But check this out. Maybe if you squatted a little bit later that day, you might have felt a little bit better, because collagen repair is happening overnight till about 9 a.m. in the morning. So sometimes if we're doing a very more vigorous exercise, sometimes a little bit later is better, especially as we're getting older or getting a little bit older and so forth. So, but yeah, perfectly natural. I mean, there's some early mornings I wake up relatively recently. I'm like, wow, I'm tired. And it's like, I was up at 5:30 early today, but I also went back to bed too for a little bit this morning as well, for a little cat nap as well. So, so yes, I understand perfectly well. Yes.
Have you heard of Brian Johnson? Have you heard of Brian Johnson?
Was that decathlete?
The Brian Johnson is a millionaire.
Okay, I think it's someone else.
So he takes over 100 supplements a day.
Wow.
Exercises. Okay. He was at one point taking like blood plasma from his teenage son to give, to do things. He's doing everything he can to prevent aging.
Yeah.
And I kind of think he's going to fail. That he's going to still.
I think Jeff, I think he probably will. I do want to get into some things that I think can help us in a very natural way.
Okay.
A way that's not very unusual, but something that's attainable for all of us here listening today and those who will listen later on. But yes, there are stories out there that people have tried to do strange things, trying to turn back the hands of time. We can never do it though. We can't do it. There was one of the actresses who just passed away recently, I think, of breast cancer, Suzanne Summers, I think, and she was doing things like that. I think she was in her 70s. She was a relatively healthy woman, but she was trying to do things that way, where she was taking various hormones to try to bring back that youthful state. And it worked for a while, but here she was with breast cancer now. I think she was in her mid-70s, so she's an older woman at this point, but she was still trying to do things. And did it work? Ultimately, no. At some point, our time does run out. Interestingly, sometimes doing those things with the extra hormones, taking them in and without your body producing them themselves, can create sometimes various forms of cancer. So something to be aware of if someone chooses to go that route. So the hormone levels do decline. But what about someone like David Minkoff? What about us listening here today? What can we do? Is there something is there something that has been learned and understood that can help us to be as vibrant, robust, and healthful for the duration of our lives? And you know what? As long as we're alive, we can serve God. We can honor Him. Now, when we fall asleep, when we go to sleep, we rest in the earth, we can't glorify God anymore. We have to wait for the resurrection at that point. But while we're alive, there's still things we can do. So there was a gentleman, and his name was he's still alive. He's a little older man now, but older gentleman, not real old, but still very sharp mentally. His name is Dr. Don Layman. And Dr. Don Layman, I'm not going to say he's the first person that got into this nutrition, this aspect of nutrition science, but he is one of the original pioneers, and he's probably the one that really made it so the science could be understood. So I give him credit for that, most definitely. So Don Layman, about the 1990s, he was doing research and studies, and he came across this idea of, or he came to this understanding through research and study and so forth about, what is going on as we're aging. And he mentions this, what I just mentioned a little bit ago, this muscle protein synthesis. So just to reiterate here, and we've mentioned this before last time, this muscle protein synthesis basically is rebuilding. The body is rebuilding, okay? Protein synthesis is rebuilding protein molecules, skeletal muscle tissue. My biceps, my triceps, my quadriceps and hamstrings, the muscles of the thigh, arms, deltoid and chest, glutes. But I'm also rebuilding ligaments, tendons. I'm rebuilding hair, skin, and nails, everything. We are constructed of water first, but protein second. So we're protein. We're a lot of protein. And when we eat fish or chicken, what are we eating? Protein, a protein source, right? We're eating a protein source, and that is, and we should be thankful to God for this, it's rebuilding us. It's giving us sustenance and energy and vitality, and that's the way God designed it, and we're grateful for his design, of course. So Don Layman he came to understand that as we're aging, there's changes that occur, the hormones decline, but then what can we do? One key item is this: add protein to your diet. So
when you say add protein, though, I noticed as I got into my 40s, I didn't feel like I needed to eat as much as I felt like I needed to eat before. So when you say add protein, what do you mean by that phrase?
What I mean by that is add grams of protein to your diet. And if you don't feel like you need the extra calories, Mike, which is a very good point that I think we'll get into later, then you cut back elsewhere. But here's the thing.
So are you saying to keep the protein grams at the same level into old age, or what about somebody in their 70s?
You may need to keep the protein grams the same. You may need to add to them, even in your 70s. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. With your carbohydrate intake, you don't want to have as much. You want to focus rather on your protein. And remember last time we mentioned protein, Mike, you and I have some Greek ancestry coming from the Greek word protos, first place or primary. Mm-hmm. Now, Mike, let me go into this a little further. Good questions. Remember, that's how we are. That's our design. Now realize if we add more protein, we are maintaining our muscle. If we lose muscle, what happens to us? We lose balance. Go ahead, Mike. What were you going to say?
You get smaller. You
get smaller. You get smaller. You get weaker. Protein maintains strength. Protein feeds the muscle. Protein helps bone density. Protein regulates metabolism.
Okay. You're making good sense, but I got a question here from Bill. Can you put that up, Jeff?
Yeah, it says, serious question. Does adding protein when you're older stress your kidneys?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It doesn't have to. If you're adding more protein, drink more water. But also, here's the thing too. Protein, unlike carbohydrates, promotes satiety. With satiety, it is satisfaction. It's fullness. I feel full. I feel like I don't need to have that piece of cake. I don't need to have that extra donut. That's what protein does for us as well, especially as we're getting older. We may not need to eat as much. This is good. This is a good discussion. And I have a lot of things around me I wanted to share. And sometimes I was wondering, how am I going to do this? And sometimes I felt like some of the questions might lead me into this. Let me give you an example. This is very, very key. This is going to be hard to see. So let's consider something. So let's take this example. Let's consider 3 ounces of a meat-based protein source, okay? We have 3 ounces of this meat-based protein source, and that is 24 grams of protein, okay? I may bring a picture up and hopefully it comes out okay, but I'll talk about it a little bit first. Let's compare that to some plant-based sources. Now, take note of this. The meat-based source is 136 calories. Special note, just 136 calories, okay? You get 24 and a half grams of protein with that meat-based source or animal-based source, okay? Let's take quinoa, for example. We get 3 cups to equal the 24 grams of protein. But how many calories does 3 cups add to? 666.
Wow.
Yes. Now, do we want that many calories? Probably not, unless maybe we're Michael Phelps in his prime, then we want a whole lot of calories then. And I've studied I've read about his nutrition program. It is out of this world when he was an Olympic swimmer. Peanut butter, another example, plant-based source. 24 grams of peanut butter, 8 tablespoons gives us 24 grams of protein. How many calories is that? 632.
Wow.
Remember again, the animal-based source was 24 grams of protein, was just 136 calories only. Now the black beans, good fiber source. We have 1 cup here for 24 grams of protein. Calories, 409. Not as many, but it's a good fiber source. So you want a good fiber source, beans certainly deliver. Edamame, that's soybeans, usually a Japanese type cuisine or something. But edamame is like soybeans. You find that sometimes at like maybe a Whole Foods in their buffet bar or something.
Yeah.
That's the 24 grams of protein, 1.3 cups, 244 calories. So again, the animal-based source gave us more bang for our buck.
Mm-hmm.
It delivered also a higher amino acid profile. I want to show you a few things too. So
George, when you're talking amino acids for people out there, can you explain like why amino acids are so important?
Amino acids basically are best described simply the building blocks of proteins. And you and I, our bodies are comprised of protein, virtually everything, water and protein. So our hormonal system, our enzymatic system, which is a catalyst to break down nutrients so we can digest them better and we can assimilate those nutrients in the body. That's comprised of amino acids, which build into proteins, rebuilding our bodies. So the amino acids rebuild this entire structure. Now, 8 of them, some people would say 9, but 8 of them are essential, which means the body doesn't make them. We must get them from an outside source somewhere. Mm-hmm. Some people would say there's 9 essential amino acids. There is some debate on that. I think to put it more for clarity, I would say that if the body's under more duress or stress, that 9th amino acid then becomes essential, but it isn't necessarily the case right off the bat. If we're healthy, things are going smoothly in our lives, but we may need to recognize that the body may not be able to produce some amino acids, and some of them that are non-essential may become essential to the body when the body is under great stress. Okay. And that could be emotional as well as physically.
We got another question. This I think is a good question. And this is Diane, who's in her 80s. How many grams are recommended for older adults per day?
Okay, that's a great question. But it does depend on activity, and it does depend on your lean body weight to begin with. But let me try to give you something a little more concrete. Here's something Dr. Don Layman would say or use as a strategy, and some of his pupils as well. He would say this: you get up in the morning, you have your first meal, And there can be some variation here, and I can explain that a little bit later. But you have your first meal. What you want to try to do is this. And this goes into our question about what can the older adult do. So this is good. We have our first meal. Have 30 to 50 grams of protein in your first meal. Big stretch there, 30 to 50 grams. So, and again, it's individual, depends on the person. You might say, oh, that's too much. I don't want to eat that much. And it's okay, you don't. But one thing you could do is do some supplementation. Okay? I'm not going to advertise for anyone necessarily, but this right here, you probably can't see this. This shows the branched chain amino acids at the top, then the regular essential amino acids at the bottom. So it shows a higher ratio. You want to have leucine ignite the muscle protein synthesis at the beginning. So getting back to the question though, when we have that amount of protein, we ignite, and this is for the older adult especially, we ignite the muscle protein synthesis. So when the hormones are declining, we combat that through good quality protein, especially in the morning. So try to go 30 to 50 grams to start the day.
Why is the morning so important?
Morning, Mike. Great question. This is one of the key points I would say of this entire day, of this entire time together. The morning of first meal is important because last night we fell asleep and we slept through the night and we're not eating or drinking throughout the night. At least I wouldn't recommend that. Okay. So we're in a fast state. We've been fasting. Isn't that interesting? So guess what? After a fast state, the body, and this is from Dr. Don Layman primarily in his research into the science, and also another doctor, Dr. Lyon as well. The body at this point is primed. It's ready to be anabolic. It's ready for muscle protein synthesis. So when you get that good quality protein right at the get-go, you're more ready to get the body, to help the body become more anabolic and to help the body rebuild.
And when you say anabolic, for those that don't, please explain that term.
Anabolic, very simply, is rebuilding or building muscle. So I'm rebuilding myself. I'm rebuilding my hair, skin, and nails, and muscle, and connective tissue, and hormonal system. I'm rebuilding all of that. And how do we do it? We do it through food. We do it through the food of God's great design. That's how we have to do it. We can do supplementation as well, and that can be helpful. But our first and foremost, we have food. That's the way God designed food for us to eat, food for us to eat. So the body after the fast, a nighttime fast, for example, it's primed and ready for a great anabolic response. We're building the body. It's ready for muscle protein synthesis, rebuilding. So that is one of the great points for an older adult. Get that 30 to 50 grams right at the get-go. Now,
okay, so a couple questions, George.
Yes.
Diane says, okay, she's an older adult in her 80s, and she's saying, what about a protein shake or smoothie in the morning?
I think a protein shake or smoothie is fine. Try to maybe add to that if you can, but I do that on occasion myself, or I might have it during the course of the day too, for some energy and some sustenance if I feel like I need that. But there are some good quality protein powders, both a whey form and also an egg white form, and also other vegan forms that can be helpful and that can help people reach their protein quota. Now, as far as grams throughout the day, that depends on your activity too. So I don't know if I want to say everybody should have 150 grams of protein. You may not need it, but try at least to start your day, or your first meal at least of the day, with a quality dose of protein. This will help anyone 30, 50, 70, 90 years old. This will help anyone with muscle protein synthesis. Get a quality protein source. Try to get all the amino acids. Excuse me. The powder I just showed you there I took this morning, I'll give you an example for myself. I probably had about 25 grams of protein, so I was a little bit short. However, check this out. I had about 5 to 5:30 a.m., I had 5 grams of essential amino acid powder with water. That's equivalent to about a couple good quality eggs, which easily gets me past then my protein quota for the morning for amino acids at least. So, which are the building blocks of the protein for everything else.
Okay, George, couple more questions here. Is there a specific food that aids in efficiently uptaking the protein? Is some foods better than others as a protein source?
Okay. Yes, there are foods that are better as a protein source. Ideally, you want to have animal-based protein sources because they have the strongest or stronger amino acid profile. Eggs are very good. Eggs are fantastic for amino acid profile. Additionally, the fish, chicken, beef, all strong amino acid profiles. They are stronger than your plant-based sources. If I may, this might be a little bit hard to do. I'm going to try to show a little diagram here. Try to look at this. I'm going to try to bring this to the screen. You see the circle? This is great. See the circles here, guys? Now, notice this. This is methionine, one of our essential amino acids. These are leucine and lysine. These are 2 branched chain amino acids, but they're also essential too, like methionine is. Now, notice the meat sources in the center. They have all of these amino acids, the leucine, lysine, and methionine. Methionine is incredibly significant for rebuilding the body, okay? For anabolic state for the body. Now, the plant-based sources here and here, this has methionine, but not the leucine and lysine. These have leucine, lysine over here by my finger, but not the methionine. So plant-based sources are limited. However, if we combine them, we get these 3 essential amino acids. The question then becomes, how much do we want to eat? How many calories should we be having? Where are we reaching our satiety, our fullness, our satisfaction? One thing that's very important is that this is a very critical point too. When we don't eat protein, when we lack protein in the diet, this human organism has innate wisdom built into it. And you know what it will do? It will begin to crave things. It'll crave a chocolate chip cookie, or maybe 2 or 3 of them. It'll crave ice cream. It'll crave an extra bowl of Cheerios. It'll crave an extra pizza, maybe a whole extra pizza.
Why is it crave?
Let me finish this. I'm sorry. Let me finish. It's very important. And I apologize. This is important. Now, why does it crave that? Because the body knows it's lacking protein. So it's trying to go at anything it can to make sure it gets the protein that it needs. Because our bodies know it's lacking our proteins. It has this innate wisdom built into it. So we begin, what do we do? We start to crave foods that we probably shouldn't be eating to get the protein our body needs. And we may get it from other sources eventually, but we're not making smart choices. So protein is also very good to keep our mental clarity, to keep ourselves full, satisfied. I'm not saying that we should eat everything should be protein, because God created fats and carbohydrates too. And those are macronutrients that we need. And then we have our micronutrients, our vitamins and minerals. I'm sorry, Mike, please go ahead. You had a question.
Okay. So you kind of answered my question there. You're seeking anything
Yes.
to bring something that
Yes.
you need. But Javi has a question. He's got a concern there that, hey, I hear what you've been saying, George, about protein, that it depends on how much activity you are using your energy state. Because my mother's 87. She doesn't move around very good because of arthritis. So I don't want her to go crazy on protein because she doesn't have the capacity to burn that. But Javi is saying that, when you think of bodybuilding and power lifters, and they put that protein in because of all the work they're doing. Is there a danger as we get older in getting too much protein?
Yes. Yes. There is, Mike, there is always the question of, can there be too much? And the answer is yes. There can always be too much. But also think about this too. Protein now, Mike, you said something about burning protein, and you're right to some extent. But realize, though, too, that protein primarily is rebuilding.
Okay.
It's rebuilding. Now, interestingly, the branched chain amino acids are very unique in that they also promote energy production as well. So they are kind of unique and interesting in that regard. I had some this morning. But yes, to go back to the question, the answer is yes. You can do too much of anything. Too much of anything is a possibility. But realize too, though, protein, that's what we're made of. That's what we're made of. You want to have a healthier older adult. You want to love your mother, your father, your grandparents, whoever. They're in their 70s, 80s. Good quality protein in their diet. It can be vegan sources too. We saw there that you can, if you combine certain vegan sources, you can combine quinoa and oats, for example. You can get off all of those essential amino acids, but just taking one or the other, you miss out though. Okay.
That's interesting. That
yes, it is, Mike.
Combination, you get them all. I didn't know like oats is a source of protein. You know.
Yeah.
So when you eat your oatmeal, you're getting some protein.
Yes, yes. Now it's not as potent, it's not as strong, but the answer, yeah. If someone has reservations, if someone is a strict vegetarian and they have emotional reasons or certain reasons that they're a vegetarian and they feel like, hey, I don't want to eat animals. Okay. Don't judge others though, but try to get good quality protein sources in but it's going to be more, you're going to have more variation in your diet, more variation in your protein sources perhaps, but it can be done. It can be done. But you probably will take more calories too. And I've come across some vegetarians who, although they espouse, I'm healthier, I'm more enlightened because I'm vegetarian, they have also, some of them have been very overweight because they've gone so hard into the carbohydrates and they're not. Now you mentioned burning, Mike. The carbohydrates, that is like the ultimate fuel source right there. That's the ultimate fuel source. So we really have to be burning those carbohydrates. So yes, it does depend on activity. It depends on, are we lifting weights? Are we running? Are we being physically active? If we're not, guess what? Remember Jesus' words? Matthew 4:4, man does not live by bread alone, right? Hey, so eat less. Eat less. Now, it's individual. Everyone's different. How do you feel? Your body will let you know. Your body will tell you. Your body will tell you how you feel. Are you satisfied, or are you craving, or are you still hungry? So oftentimes we have protein, we feel satisfied. Carbohydrates, for example, we don't feel satisfied. But realize though, carbohydrates should be more of a fuel source. Now, let me mention a little bit about that. That's probably an interesting discussion.
Before you go on, George, let me just get a couple questions here and then see if Jeff has anything. So did you hear the girl Annie Bollick? Was she in your high school class?
Annie Bollick. She wasn't in my high school class, no.
Okay. That's okay. That's a joke from somebody. Thank you for that. So we got a question here that okay, Diane says, okay, if I get 50 grams in the morning, how many more grams do I need during the day if you're about 80?
That's a great question. Mm-hmm. That goes back. That question gets us back into Don Layman's science and Don Layman's research. So what would we do? Here it would be a recommendation. Okay. Let's say we have 3 meals throughout the day. That second meal can maybe be a salad or something, maybe a sandwich, and we're not as concerned about the protein grams in that meal. Okay. Now, so maybe we get 10 grams, maybe 15. Now, if you're lifting weights or something, If you've done a lot of manual labor or physical activity, then I would make a different recommendation. But for most people, the recommendation from Don Layman's research and science would be that have a nice, comfortable meal, whatever you feel like, pretty much at that point in time.
Okay, one
Now,
other
for the
question.
third, maybe it's 10 grams, maybe it's 15. Now, the third meal, you may want to go a little bit higher with your protein. Okay, maybe 25, maybe 30. So maybe you're looking at throughout the day about 90 grams of protein. Maybe if you're a smaller individual, not as active, maybe you want to go maybe just 70 grams of protein. Okay, so but activity will change that answer though, and what we're doing throughout the day. But maybe I would say like a safe bet, 70 to 90. And one of the research overviews that I saw on this, they were breaking it up this way. They were saying try to go 30, 30, 30 for most people. You can do a little bit less than that. You certainly can do more if you feel the body needs that. And of course, going back to I'm not a nutritionist. My background is exercise physiology. I do have some studies and some certifications. One of them is specialist in performance nutrition with the ISSA, and Mike, you're a little bit familiar with them too, I think, International Sports Science Association. So I do have a certificate in this study of performance nutrition from that organization, which is out in California. What they discuss is always consider activity, always consider lean body weight to begin with. It's okay to have less one day and more another day, maybe another day, something in between. What you try to do is focus on how your body feels and is responding.
Okay, ahead, so Javi and Seventh Day Sabbath Keepers have a similar question here.
Okay,
they've heard that 1 gram of protein for 1 pound of body weight. Don't go over your body weight in protein each day. So you're talking about an 80-year-old person who's just regular activity. You're saying about 90 grams of protein for them. But now let's get to a guy who's 6'1", 220. Javi is saying, hey, 1 gram for 1 pound of body weight. What do you say to that? Because our 220-pounder here is saying that, hey, that seems like too much protein for me, 220 grams a day.
I would say let's go back to activity for the day. Now here, but I should say this. I have come across about 3 or 4 different viewpoints on this. I don't necessarily think 220 grams of protein for someone is necessarily too much. It might be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how active are you? How active is the individual? Also, remember, it's also a larger individual, perhaps in most examples. So you probably want to have a little more protein than the average person. A bigger individual, more protein, more macronutrient. That makes perfect sense.
But if you're not feeling it, you go with what you're feeling?
Yes. If you feel like, wow, I'm satisfied, I don't feel like anything else, just stop. It's okay. One thing you could do if there's a concern, and you could do this, if there is a concern that I've been very active, I've had this amount of protein, and I want to get that protein quota, but I just don't feel it, and you shouldn't push it. Mm-hmm. You may, if you wish, you could do supplementation. This is an essential amino acid supplement, which could be helpful. You don't have the calories, you certainly don't have the fat that goes along with it, but you're still getting those building blocks for the body that are going to help you rebuild and recover as well. So I think that the 220, if someone's having 220 grams, is it too much? If they're feeling like they're eating too much, then just stop. If you feel like, but continue to hydrate. And if you do feel like you want to have more amino acids without the extra calories, go with a supplement if you wish. That would be very helpful. And the one other thing too is you get what this morning. Let me go back to this morning. I had a breakfast, but also before 2 hours before my breakfast, my regular breakfast, I had the amino acids with water. What that did for me was this: those 5 grams of essential amino acids, there was no competition with nutrients. So what happened was those 5 grams of essential amino acids got into my bloodstream very quickly. They're going to get to my skeletal muscles very quickly without any disturbance of bread, of a donut or coffee. So just water and aminos. So I know that there's always a point in my day where I'm very active and I push myself hard. These days I go a little bit less on time on that because I don't have the time, but I still get my exercise in, and I still want to make sure my body's able to recover and I feel good. And generally I do, although sometimes I feel a little beat up myself. So I understand. But that was my strategy this morning. I got 5 grams in of a supplement form, and some people may not want to do supplements, but that's going to help me though. That was equivalent to having a couple eggs without any other calories or fat or anything else. So, and then later on, I had a more vegan-based protein myself because I didn't have really anything else. But this right here is, I'll just show you this here. This is an example of a vegan form of protein. It's a good carbohydrate source without a fast elevation of blood sugar levels. Now, it's also how it's contrived. It reduces phytic acid, which is good because phytic acid prevents us from absorbing important nutrients. So this is one of the Ezekiel products, and I think all of you or some of you may have heard of those. They do make some cereals, breads, and pastas, but the glycemic index is in the 30s. And for someone with diabetes or prone to diabetes, that is a very good thing. And even someone who just wants sustained energy, it's still a very good thing.
Hey, real quick, I have a question. What is the supplement you showed? What's the name of that supplement?
Okay. I do a couple different things. One of the things I do is Perfect Amino. Okay. Perfect Amino. I'll mention a couple names if you don't mind me advertising for a few folks. Probably fine. So a Perfect Amino is one. There is also a Prime Evil Labs. Prime Evil Labs. That is not a PED, not a performance-enhancing drug, I promise. But Prime Evil Labs essential amino acids is another. There's also a NutriCost, but the NutriCost just has the branched chain amino acids only. That's still good. And you know what? If you get branched chain amino acids, you know what that's a catalyst for? That's a catalyst for glutamine, another amino acid, which helps our immune health. So the branched chains do promote that as well. So the branched chains are a little more intricate. They're essential as well, but there's also 5 other essential or 6 other essential, depending on your perspective. But they're also catalysts for other things too, other amino acids that the body needs. So like glutamine. So Prime Evil Labs, Perfect Amino, NutriCost, or some. And there's others too. Try to go with limited ingredients. Limited ingredients is always a good thing. I take some aminos also with electrolytes, just to help my energy level a little bit throughout the day, or if I feel like I need it after a workout or during a workout or something.
Okay, George, a couple more questions, and we just got a few minutes, so try to keep it brief. Creatine was all the rage years ago.
Yes.
Can you explain your thoughts on creatine and what it does and what do you think about it?
I think creatine is fine. If you're creatine does promote muscle mass and energy. There probably is. Creatine is probably, I did a paper on creatine for ISSA some years ago, and it's probably the most researched of any supplement out there, is along with vitamin C and omega-3 fatty acids. So it is a safe supplement. Creatine does possibly create some digestive upheaval in some individuals. Have it with more water if you choose to have it. However, also, if you have good quality red meat source, guess what? You're getting quality creatine along with that too. Creatine is good for skeletal muscle tissue. Research has been coming out just in the last couple of years. It's been remarkable. Creatine also has a strong correlation with good brain health, good neurological health as well. Okay. The only downside to creatine is just that the indigestion a little bit. So I'll stop. I can go on a little further, but I'll stop.
Okay.
Have a question, Mike?
Okay. Yeah. How about Could you put Robert's question up, Jeff? Robert Ansondo's
Yeah.
Kenyan proverb, George. What do you think about it?
It says, is this a true
Okay.
saying? Eat like a king in the morning,
Ah.
eat like a queen for lunch, and eat like a beggar in the evening. Is this true? Then
Well,
it
I'll tell you
can't be
what.
the opposite.
That's an interesting proverb. I have had that posed to me in different ways. So I would say there is truth behind that. And according to Dr. Don Lehman's research and studies, along with Dr. Lyon as well, who wrote a very good book called Forever Strong, if anyone wants to learn more about the subject, that's pretty much what he would say in some regard. Certainly with the protein components that have something more robustful in the morning. As the day progresses, generally speaking, we're going to cut back a little bit. We're going to start to cut back a little bit. So yes, I would agree with that to some extent. Yes, there's still what we're doing throughout the day though too. That question is important too.
Okay, George, what about liver and kidney in processing, the protein? What is there?
Okay.
Is there anything you got to think about, worry about with too much protein in regard to liver and kidney?
Yes, we should always be mindful of, okay, what are we putting in our bodies and how much of it? Because are we able to metabolize everything? Probably not. Not if we're eating too much. If we're trying to put more and more and more into us, that's not a good thing. The liver is a remarkable organ. One of the things, it has many jobs in the body. One of its amazing jobs, it emulsifies and breaks down fat. If the liver is functioning optimally, we should stay nice and lean and healthy throughout the duration of our lives. So take note of our body composition. If you feel like, hey, I'm a few pounds overweight or something, no worries. Do something about it. We all can do something about it, right? But yes, Mike, our organs can be, they can be under duress with too much. Yes, it's a fair question. It's a fair question to pose and ask. And the answer to it is yes. So one thing that helps, one of the ultimate equalizers is something very simple, something we all know: drink more water. Drink more water and promote a healthy liver.
What does the water do in relation to the kidney and liver?
Cleansing, Mike, cleansing and helping the whole metabolic pathway. Water, it's almost like life-giving. It does almost everything in a sense.
Mhm.
It can do almost everything. I heard Paul Chek say once in one of his seminars, if you pollute, you must dilute. Drink water. Drink water. So that was one of his popular lines with one of his seminars. So there's a cleansing effect. There's also the effect, Mike, too, that when we take in more water, everything works at a better level. Mm-hmm. Everything in this organism that we possess functions in a more optimal way. So, and water first, protein second. So I should mention that again too.
Yeah, we're gonna die without water quicker than protein, right?
That's true. We will. You're exactly right. So, guys, can I share a little bit more about diabetes?
Yeah, we got about maybe 10 minutes left if we want it.
There were no more questions, right?
Yeah, I think you got all the questions there. Yeah.
So protein will help us regulate metabolism. It'll help maintain muscle. Let's say, for instance, so we can. I'll try to be brief. We can look at diabetes in this way. We have type 1, which is more of a genetic component or factor. We have type 2, more dietary. We have also gestational diabetes too. So a woman can have diabetes when she's pregnant. Usually, thank God, that subsides or goes away after the baby is born. But there's different reasons for these things, different reasons for that. But let's go to type 2. Let's focus on type 2, because type 2 diabetes, that's about 90% or more, maybe a little bit more than diabetes cases, okay? So with diabetes, we have, what's happening there? So we're taking in too much carbohydrate, in essence. Let's say those sources include potatoes, cereals, breads, pastas, all that good stuff, right? But what if we're not exercising? What if we're not very active? We can become insulin resistant as it is posed, meaning that we eat these carbohydrate foods.
Mm-hmm.
It gets into our bloodstream as glucose or sugar. It goes to our skeletal muscle tissue, and then it's stored as glycogen. Glycogen is just a way of saying that's a carbohydrate energy fuel for my muscles to be able to use when it's ready, when I need to use them. But what if I'm not exercising or doing much of anything? What if I go home after a hard day of work and I put on the news and I eat a big pot of spaghetti or something, or pizza? So then what? Over time, the muscle's taking in this food stuff or this sugar. At some point, it can't take in any more. So what happens is this sugar stays in the bloodstream. That is not what we want. We want to be able to use that fuel. In the bloodstream, it becomes poison. It becomes toxic.
So what you're saying is when people become type 2 diabetic, what is happening is the sugar, rather than it can't stay in the cell anymore, it can't fit, it goes into the blood.
Yes.
And what happens when you got the sugar in the blood now and you're not active?
When you're not active, Mike, that will lead to weight gain, obesity. That will lead to type 2 diabetes as well. Potentially, eventually, probably
so what does diabetes do? Like I hear, it can affect everything, right?
It can affect everything, Mike. Yes, it can affect our mental outlook. It can affect our personality. It can affect our eyesight. It can affect the blood flow to the limbs. I knew of someone, God bless him, a teacher of mine who had type 2 diabetes. His lower leg was removed. So the blood flow, that is limited because we have now this toxin in the bloodstream. But guess what? We take in, rather than choosing more carbohydrate, if we're not very active, eat less or have less carbohydrate. We do need some, even if we're not very active. But our protein rebuilds the body. And guess what? We can also use some of the protein source as an energy source too. What I'm getting at is this. Many of us don't need to eat as much as we eat. We should focus on protein, especially as we're aging. And we want to limit carbohydrate. Limit the carbohydrate. It's okay to say no to the piece of pie, the cupcake, the Twinkie. It's okay to say no to those things. It's okay to hurt someone's feelings. You might help them out. You might help someone out. But guess what? If I ran a 10K one day, I did CrossFit another day, and I'm out with the dogs on a hike the other day, and it's Friday night, the Sabbath is right on the corner. Dear Lord, I'm gonna treat myself a little bit. I think it's okay. And God won't be upset with me. But He does want us to take care of this physical temple.
Right. You like a cheat day or whatever, but we got a point by Olivia here about nitric oxide is needed for insulin to enter our cells. So when I hear nitric oxide, I'm thinking of
circulation,
oxygen, or so that would be exercise, right? That would help.
Exercise, yes. Exercise does promote that. Certain foods do have nitric oxide. Nitric oxide does promote circulation as well, and there are supplement forms for that too. So, but Mike, going back to
let me before you say that, why is exercise so important for people? Not just your diet with diabetes, but why is exercise also? Why do they say exercise and diet?
Yes, Mike. Exercise. Let's do it this way first. This human organism is designed for movement. We're designed to do something. When we take in fuel, we take in the carbohydrate, especially fat source as well. We're designed to use this for energy. So what exercise does, in relation to more pertinent with our conversation right now, it helps utilize all the nutrients appropriately. It helps muscle protein synthesis. It helps burn the carbohydrate fuel source. It also will burn fat source too. So it'll burn the fuel sources that we don't need as well. So exercise, addition to that, it enhances metabolic rate, builds bone density, builds skeletal muscle tissue, makes it stronger. Interestingly, it's not also about having more and more and more muscle. We want to have more healthy muscle. There are bodybuilders that I knew of and strong men who died quite young. The muscle didn't give them longevity, partly because they weren't going about it in a natural way. They were doing it in an unnatural way, and that was part of their demise.
Steroids,
yes,
supplementation.
We want to do it as naturally as we can.
Mm-hmm.
Be smart, but also don't never forget we're designed to move. We're designed to move, and you know what? When we exercise, the body, again, just to reiterate, it knows what to do with all these nutrients, and it enhances the growth and development of protein, and it enhances the fuel source of the carbohydrate and the fat sources as well. So, and the fat source too, of course, that can be, our brain is 50% fat and cholesterol. So some fat sources are very optimal for our brain health. They're very important for our brain health. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much exercise would you suggest for older individuals? Like how many?
How much exercise?
Yeah. How much?
Great question. I would say, Jeff, 3 to 5 days a week of resistance training and some light aerobic training. So I would say 3, 4, or 5 days a week, maybe have a couple of days off. I would try to definitely focus on the resistance training. Definitely focus on getting up and out of a chair, moving their own body weight well. Try some balance type exercises. Try some small hand weights a little bit. Your squat is a good foundational exercise. Your deadlift is a good foundational movement. Doesn't have to be with weight, but those are movements where you have the glutes working, you have your back working, you have your hamstrings working, some of the biggest, most powerful muscles of the body. Latissimus dorsi, stabilizer for a deadlift type movement. Erector spinae, which run along the spine. So 3 to 5 days a week, I think is optimal. I think try to increase the intensity a little bit. When I was in college, and I sometimes I forget, when was I in college again? That's the sign of getting older, right? 24 years ago, I was at Slippery Rock University. And I remember I did one of my projects was exercise in the aging adult. And there was a man, 90 years of age. He went on a strength training program. After 3 months, he would use a cane. After 3 months, he could balance himself without his cane. That is awesome. Doesn't mean he's going to live forever, but guess what? His quality of life, amen, improved. That's wonderful. So, but I mentioned the diabetes because I think that's the hot topic button for many of us, and we see it with our families and so forth. But also protein and exercise play a key role in minimizing and even reducing type 2 diabetes. People who have had type 2 diabetes before, they've been able to overcome it and not need the medication that goes along with it or the medical care that goes along with it. A lot of that is dietary. There's a few things I mentioned that may not have been dietary. Type 2 diabetes is dietary. So
okay.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with, George, before we go? Because we're going to need the...
Jeff, there is. I'll be brief, I promise.
Okay.
Here's something. Now, think about this quote. This is not mine, but it's mine now. I'm going to say it's partially mine now. So everybody think about this. God has entrusted me or you, or let me rephrase it to myself. God has entrusted me with myself. No man or woman is free who cannot master himself. One of the greatest points of mastery in our lives, how we eat, how we drink. May God be with you all. It's been a pleasure. Peace.
All right. That's good words to go out on. Thank you very much, George.
Amen.
Okay. Thanks, George.
And we'll say goodbye to everybody and see everyone next week. Improve all things.
Bye-bye.